It's been a minute, but I'm back, and let's just get straight into it. So lovely. So I may or may not have put in certain allegations on this show for the first 2 episodes, but I did hold out some type of hope and promise to come back after a certain amount of episodes had aired, and then I could probably give a more fleshed out opinion on the show. And
I am back. What it do, baby?
And what I have to say is, it's still mid. Nah, I'm kidding. Nah, imagine I actually said that. No, it's actually pretty good. I actually have quite enjoyment for the last 4 or 5 episodes. I think it's up to episode 7 right now. And honestly, I gotta give it its props. It finally got me like really interested and invested, especially when it leaned into the things I wanted it to, which is 1, i.e. the power system. And come to find out after episode 1 and 2, his power system basically gets revealed as like him playing video games while he's already in a fantasy-esque aesthetic. Which reminds me of a little bit of something that was on the channel earlier, and you should go check out. But as I was saying, his power system really is that one thing that sort of hooks me into the story, where like it's very, very interesting in the way it's done and how they sort of go about it. Okay, so with 1, the notifications. Now the notifications give him like notifications on like any and everything, whether it be him drinking beer, then it notifying him that it's poison, so like it heals him, or 2, it notifying him about enemies and either how strong they are, or when he kills and defeats them, he actually gets a whole little bit of loot and it tells him what specifically it is or what he could do with that loot. Then there's also the actual Souls like leveling up system itself, right, where it levels up his brawn, his intelligence, his perception, his speed, his agility. And I feel like that's probably like the most important, right, because it feels like it completely changes him in 2 different ways. 1, his appearance. He goes from like a little boy to like a more buffer man to like a super buff tall ass man, which is pretty funny. And then there's the other thing of just him having almost felt like a character change of like him changing. Well, obviously he's getting intelligence and brawn and all this other stuff, but it feels like he's changed like emotionally as well as logically of how he views and see things. Like for example, when he doesn't necessarily join the guild at first, when it comes to Yojin Ho and the billions of dollars that he was gonna potentially give him, I'm pretty sure in episode 1 he would have definitely took that goddamn deal, especially for his family. I know I would. Or the actual insanity of him going through the demon gate and fighting that first boss, or the first boss that's at the door. Honestly, I don't know how he's alive, but I'll get into that later. Then there's also the concept of him having that store that he has in his like little menu. And I think that's funny, also weird at the same time, because I don't know if it's like imaginary money that he's like from picking up from beating the enemies that's getting put into the store, because I know for a fact it's not linked to his fucking credit card or bank account where he just like takes out money and just buys stuff inside his like little menu or whatever. But going back to tnjugo and talk about how he's become smarter, right, I think it's interesting when he brings up the fact that him and as well as his leveling up system is like coexisting in a way, and it makes me sit there and wonder, like, what technically speaking, what do you mean by like it's coexisting? Like, do you mean that like, he's got to pay a price at a certain point in time of him just like keep taking, or using advantage of this leveling up system itself, or maybe it's feeding off him in some type of way that we're not really seeing at this point in time? But moving on to one of the things that I found really interesting is just like going around the concept of like what we already have established, right? For example, what I'm talking about is like the people in the dungeons and what can necessarily happen in the dungeons. Like for example, where Sung Joon-woo actually gets into a situation where he has people that PK, like they actually play a kill or they kill people inside of dungeons and basically just loot the whole thing. And for me, stuff like this is what's really shining out for solo leveling, because it's just like how I said before, like how before it was like mid or like not really interesting to me, but we finally get a lot more interesting concepts to like finally hook me in and like really sink me into the story or what's going on. But going back to this situation, I love this confrontation for multiple different reasons because it has layers to it, right? 1, the layer of actual having situations where people come in and attempt to murder you because it's like an easy thing to do. There's no cameras, and who the fuck is gonna figure it out, right? Because the portal's closed and there's not really any evidence left out. So that situation is already interesting enough. Then on top of that, you have the really interesting concept of the system that Sung Joon-woo is using is like straight up rewarding him for straight up PKing and killing other players as well. But the one thing I will add is it feels like the system knows what's going on, and it's like sort of like seeing. It's almost like a symbiotic relationship a little bit, right? Where like it knows and understands the situation that's going on specifically, and it adapts to what's happening, and then would i.e. give him a mission to do that said thing, which would be obviously in the situation kill the PKers, right? And then the last layer of cake that's on here, right? The last layer of this cake specifically is just Sung Joon-woo changing as a person. Now, I don't necessarily know if this is always him for the beginning, like this is always him like the inside version of himself. But I would say that this system, or him like getting that little bit of power, in my opinion, feels like he's like changing because of it. He's like, okay, I have power, I should act accordingly, as well as he's already getting more intelligence from the system itself. So it already feels like he's already changing because of that alone. And also I might add, like, he's delusional, but not like fully delusional, you know. The reason I say this is because the situation where he specifically goes to like the Demon King realm, and he thinks in his mind that he can actually go ahead and get this elixir of life for his mom. And I understand the sentiment of like him really wanting to go and get it, but like, you just barely defeated like a C rank boss, and this motherfucker wants to go ahead into an S rank area and just take it over, right?
Wait, where'd you get that piano?
And I'm even surprised he even won that fight. I thought he was going to die because he barely beat the spider. So I'm like, how the fuck is he going to beat the dog? And he somehow beats the dog. But only his half delusional self said, you know what? Let me not go inside the castle. I'm going to insta-die if I go in there. I was like, okay. He's half delusional. I'll give him that. And the last thing I probably want to talk about to go over is just like we finally get like that main goal, what we're going to do, right? It's just like get the elixir of life to actually help his mom. And I know that was already like set up before, and we did talk about that, but I didn't feel like it was like a really main goal in the upfront until like right now, at least in my opinion. We're like episode like 6, 7 right now. I feel like we have something to strive for and work for besides obviously leveling up and basically becoming above S rank or whatever the case is. But you know what, other than that, this show is actually pretty good. I do regret saying it. It actually is pretty good. After 2 episodes, I was like, oh, it's mid. Pretty good. I definitely suggest, at least for right now, we're up to episode 7. So we'll see how far it goes, as well as if it gets better or worse, or the case may be from here on out. But yeah, I do actually suggest it for now. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye. Okay, everyone left? Okay, all right, great. Time for the secret message. All right, so what I was going to say is, for everyone that is sticking around right now, is that my internet was fucked up for the last 2 weeks. I'm not gonna get to the specific details, but my internet was fucked for the last 2 weeks. That's why I didn't upload. So I do really want to apologize for that. I am gonna come back in, and we're gonna go back into like, you know, the swing of thing where I upload like at least 2, potentially 3 videos if I really push it for like a week, or the case may be. But other than that, thank you guys for always being here, watching, liking, comment, subscribing. See you guys in the next one. Goodbye. For real this time.